You may have had a chance to read a little bit about my bio on the Sway website. Kind of my bio kind of melts well with the whole theme of transitions. I've gone through lots of transitions throughout my whole life. As I was reflecting on that earlier this week, my first major transition was a sad one, actually. When I was a year old, my dad died very young. My mom, they were immigrants to this country. My mom was left with two boys, not speaking English, poor, and then moving ahead, going through school and being the first one in my family to graduate from college. My next big transition was actually joining a monastic community on the East Coast. So leaving home, getting used to a radically new way of living and prospering in that way of living for many years, and then being in leadership positions in the monastery and traveling and having kind of a national and international presence. Then in my 50s, deciding to kind of leave all that in order to be open to be married. And the woman who became my wife, I met her later. It's not like she was waiting at the monastery door for me. And and I left that life without any money. I didn't have a trust fund I was walking into. The economy was horrible at that time. And I was not 30 years old anymore. But things came together, and that's how I got into hospital chaplaincy, which I've been doing for the last 10 years. And then, of course, the big transition into marriage. Marriage is like entering another world and another planet, and especially since my wife and I had never been married before. And then moving to Portland from the East Coast. And what I do now as a chaplain, gosh, I'm exposed to the big transition every day. People dying, or people negotiating severe illness or trauma of any sort. And of course, in the last 2 years of pandemic, negotiating and caring for the trauma experienced by our nurses. So transitions is something that's been a big part of my life, and I'm sure a big part of your life. And I want to spend just a little bit of time on some teaching notes, but I really want this to be a discussion between us. I want to hear about what's going on in your life right now, what's alive for you in terms of transitions that you are living or contemplating living or have already lived and are still thinking about. So I'm going to share my screen here. Oh, wait a minute. Actually, I don't see my PowerPoint. I'm going to minimize for a second. Okay, I think I got it. No, I don't see it.
It says you're the host. I do know.
Okay, I got it. I got it.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right. So as I said, I want our time together as a time to kind of slow down, and we can just notice what's important for us right now. And the big note today, sometimes that we struggle with, is to allow ourselves the freedom to notice that, yes, the transition may be a time of being uprooted, but it's also a time of new planting. We say the obvious when we say that transitions are part of life. And although this may be a truism, it's not one that we like. Most people don't like change in their lives, even when the change may be towards something better or good, because we like what's familiar. even when what's familiar may not be entirely healthy for us. And our lives are bookended by the transitions of birth and death. That's a reality that marks the life of every human being. And it marks all the pieces of life in between our being born and our dying. And of course, this time of pandemic for all of us in our own personal experiences has really been such a profound and stark experience of transitions, especially from the known to the unknown. And this transition from what is known to what is not known is both scary, but also really important that we stick with it, because if we think about it, what is unknown may be fearful, but what is unknown also holds the capacity to show something new. And any vitality in our life comes to us from what is new, not necessarily from what is already well rehearsed. So, as I say, we've all have been feeling this sense of being uprooted, and being thrown into that wonderful reality that with this beautiful phrase, liminal spaces. You know, liminal spaces is that kind of space in a doorway that we haven't left one room and we haven't entered yet the next room. It's that kind of boundary space where we feel ourselves to be neither here nor there. And that's the space that drives most of us into great anxiety, into great discomfort. It's precisely the moment when we grab for easy solutions or solutions that seem to comfort us, even when instinctually we know that's not the best solution or the most healthy solution. And so much of what's important for us is to learn to sit within that space, to befriend actually the discomfort, because in that discomfort, therein lies the germ for new life and new possibilities. So as I just said, liminal space, as anxious as it may feel, is a place of possibility. And whether personally or in our workspace or as work groups, if we kind of just fast forward through things and not allow ourselves individually or as groups to sit in the discomfort and to ask ourselves, why am I feeling uncomfortable? What's triggering my discomfort? All those types of questions of curiosity unmask the possibility of learning new things, of finding out through self-critique what could be done better, what needs to be adjusted, what needs to die in us, what needs to come to life in us. And I love this phrase, which I actually read in some book I was reading. I can't even remember what I was reading, about dark places, which are these places of anxiety, of insecurity, of not being here nor there, that it's really up to us whether those dark places become a burial chamber for us, like a place where we just like go under, we get buried by the anxiety, or through a kind of discipline, I would even say a kind of spiritual discipline of sitting with, of entering into, of moving towards, that if we're able to give ourselves the chance to do that, that these dark places, just like the dark soil underneath the surface of the ground, can be a fruitful place of planting for us. And, you know, as I tell many of our nurses back where I worked in our intensive care units who are going through PTSD, who are angry, who are disturbed, who are burnt out, at some point we need to turn our griefs, our anxieties into wisdom. Mm-hmm. We know from the great literature of humankind throughout centuries, throughout many cultures, throughout many religious traditions, that wisdom is often the product of struggle. Wisdom is not a pearl that emerges out of ease and softness. Wisdom is a product of struggle, like stones in a building that under tension are rubbing against each other and smoothing each other out. That wisdom is like that. One way of kind of viewing all this kind of dynamically is that, you know, the whole notion of a field, like in field theory or energy fields or relational fields between the energies between people, that we all live in a field, meaning that we live in sort of intersecting planes of energy, of relationship. You know, when I'm with my wife at home, physically we may be alone together here, but who else is in the room? Her family background, my family background, memories, past events, sad and happy things that have happened between us. It's all there, like intersecting fields. So to pinpoint three particular areas of within a field, that we can say that when we experience things in our life, we're experiencing just phenomena, just things that are happening, you know. So, you know, Tatiana just had a baby, and happy event. But I can well guess it's introducing lots of transitions into her personal life and her married life, I bet. But the birth of this baby is simply a phenomenal, it's a fact. It doesn't point towards anything of itself that should be valued as negative or valuable. It's simply a fact. Then there's our perception of the fact. Like, how am I perceiving this? And I think there is the central kind of place where we can gather some wisdom. I can perceive the things happening in my life as simple realities that I do not need to demonize, or I don't need to aggrandize to make them bigger than they are. I can simply see them as they are without the kind of judgment that really alters what I'm seeing. Then, if we're able to kind of sit with what's around us, and we're talking about transitions today, but if we're able to sit with the transitions that are coming upon us and just say, oh, so now there's a baby in our life. Wow, that's something new for us. Can I view, I'm giving the example of this child in Tatiana's life, can I view this baby not so much as what it's taking away from me, but how this baby is offering me some renewal in my life, a gift in my life. And you know, gifts don't always come in shining packages. Again, using the image of this child and this family, a child may push a couple towards greater patience. A child may push a couple to finding greater joy in just being home together with their child. So the question is always, what gift is being offered to me for my personal or corporate renewal and what's happening right now? Because the very asking of the question that way already tilts us towards finding the gift in my life circumstance. If we begin in a negative space of what's being taken away from me, what am I losing in this? If we begin there, we're going to end up there. Our intention is supremely important. So what might be some tools for our journey? I think the biggest tool I'd say is curiosity. By cultivating curiosity, we create intimacy with our life precisely as it is, not as we may like it to be or imagine it to be, but precisely as it is. Curiosity allows us to lean into what we don't know. And life is found in those areas yet to be discovered, those places not yet known. I've used this image already a few minutes ago of just sitting with it, whatever it is, whatever life phenomenon presents to itself to us, sitting with it without judgment. That's really hard for us to do. We are sadly almost hardwired to always judge. And the very judgment alters what we see. Can we just sit with what is happening in our life? Sitting with the emotions around it, anger, fear, disturbance, or joy, whatever it is, just to sit with that, to become close to it. You know, many of the great meditation practices of antiquity are precisely around this, just sitting with our life as it is in this moment, because it's the only life we have. Instead of letting our mind move outside of where we are. And then allowing ourselves to begin to name the possible gifts or the real gifts in what's happening in my life right now. I remember years ago, I had a spiritual director that when I would bring my woes to her, her fundamental question to me always, Fernando, where is the gift? And it's such a beautiful question, because the question invites ongoing curiosity, entering into, and really tilts our life in the direction that no matter what life feels like in this moment as a possible disturbance, there is a gift there for us. There is a gift there for us. It's waiting there for us to discover it. And this last point, process is a feedback loop, that this is an ongoing process. We're curious, we sit with, we begin to name the gift, and then we go back to the curiosity. We go back to the sitting with. We go back to the naming the gift. It's not a static process. It's a dynamic feedback loop. And the more we name the gift, the more it feeds our curiosity to keep on looking deeper and further. Then lastly, just, kind of repeating what I've said, but in a nutshell, is let's meet our personal and professional transitions with curiosity and anticipating, expecting, with time, whatever gift is there for us to have.